Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome back to Streaming Alchemy. I'm John Mahoney, and on today's show, I want to share some of the things that we've been working on the Gnural Net side of the house. Some new updates, UI changes, and a new product that we're going to be releasing in the first quarter of next year. So before we get to that, I'd like to invite everyone, if you have any questions, anything you'd like us to talk about or focus a little bit more on, just post them in the comment section and we'll get to that. Also, if you'd like to join us here live on air, we'd love to have you. So please, we have a link in the show notes for this show and we should be able to get you on pretty quickly. So thank you for joining us today. I know it's right before Christmas for a lot of us and there's a lot going on. So I appreciate everybody making the time here. So there were a few things that I really wanted to cover in this show. And the first one is a new guest interface. One of the things that we've heard from a number of people in our market is that they'd like to have a little more flexibility with the UI that the guest sees. So I want to go through what we have planned and show you this, and this will be available as an alpha as of now. So this would be something that if you're a LiveToAir user and you wanted to give this a try, we'd be happy to have you work with it and give us your feedback. So let me switch over here first. And this is basically the general layout of the new UI. So we have on the left-hand side, we have all of the controls that you have. So you can change webcams, you can do resolutions, audio devices, all of that. These are all also controllable remotely on the LiveToAir side, so you don't have to ask a guest to do anything in order to make changes there. We've added a few new things, though. We now give you the ability to turn automatic gain control on and off, to turn voice optimization on and off, and to turn software or hardware encoding on, so you can switch between the two. And the browser does that software or hardware encoding. So that's something that we give you the ability. If you're using a lower power computer, you may want to use some of the hardware encoding, but the software encoding or hardware encoding will both work. So the automatic gain control is really the obvious one, where when somebody talks, if they talk really softly, it raises the volume, and or if they talk really loud, it lowers it. For most people, if it's just a discussion or an interactive panel, you'd probably want to leave that on. But if you're doing stuff with music or other things that require like critical listening, both the automatic gain control and voice optimization can be shut off to allow you to bring in much higher quality audio, albeit without sort of the safeguards where it's trying to, the voice optimization normally will do things like noise reduction, echo cancellation, things like that, but it hurts the sound quality. So if you have that all under control on your guest side, switching those things off could give you a better overall signal. But the basic model is somebody could come in here. You could send them a link with the show, or you could just have them join the show here. And when they join the show, this is very, very similar to what people would see today. You have, basically your state. So in this case, waiting to be screened. But it sort of gives you the whole pipeline, so somebody can see where I am in the process. The other thing, though, is that we can actually let you close this side panel now, which is different from where we are. And you now have the ability to have your video just floating and decide where you'd like to put it on the screen. So when you hover over it, it gives you sort of the 4 quadrants, and you can just move it around to where it is least intrusive, or you could actually just click down here and turn it off completely. So that's the overall new look to this, but there is something that I really want to show, which is all about the ability to customize this. So as we sort of, let me just switch over here. So one of the things that we wanted to be able to do was allow people to take and customize their UI. And this basically is the same URL call, but now with a whole bunch of arguments that we've added to it that describe exactly how you want your product to look. So in this case, we made a simple one with the Streaming Alchemy logo. All the core elements are here that you had before, where you can, join a show, you can enter name, things like that. I could also, if you sort of go back a step, you can come here and say, I have all of the things I need to do my media devices and, the switches we added. But now, one of the things you get is when somebody signs in, you can also say, what do I want the backdrop to be? So in this case, this would be a simple backdrop when people sort of connect to the URL you'd send them, where it's just showing, these are things you should make sure of. Before you even join the show now, you can show them something that gives you either personal branding, notes, or other things that the guests may want to follow to make sure they're doing everything correct. And then when they join the show, let me just do that over here, you'll see the same thing. But now you see we have not only all the elements on screen that we had here, but we also have now, you have joined the show, and we have another background that you can see. So each step that somebody goes through in this process, you're able to take and allow them now to have a new backdrop that's a part of this with branding, messaging, anything else you want. So as you move through, you get to do that. But you'll also notice that we've changed all the colors. So with these graphics that we have here, this sort of light, very pale colors. So we set up a website look that has all those pale color elements. And that's another thing now that if somebody is working with this, you have the ability to do all of that. So let me just take and say, okay, we are going to now take this person and we're going to move them into the studio. So now you can see we've moved to the studio. You get that message. And again, a new background. When I connect this person, so let me just go over here and we'll connect them here. You now see this is the exact same thing we had before, but you now have this inside your framework. If you want it to do what we mentioned before, you can have this whole thing sitting over here without any sort of bar on the side. And again, you have the ability to turn your video on and off and move it where it's least intrusive. The other thing you can do, and again, this is based on something that we've taken feedback from. Right now we have this side so it's sort of pinned. It locks the branding and everything else. If I were to turn that off, unpin this, and then close this, you'll notice now that the guest UI is really taking up this entire screen. And so what they're seeing doesn't have any of these other distracting elements. And not only can we give you this, which still has sort of some of the browser elements and other things in there, but say you wanted to return a video that may be going up on a big screen where you may have one active participant, but you want them to be able to, say it's a church setting or an event setting, you wanted them to see this return video. We actually give you a sort of a clean feed. Let me just F11, a clean feed of this. So now you get something that's coming back that has no other overlays on it. This is pure clean video. And that's just a key press that you can do on the guest side. So when we're done and this guest is finished, what we can do is we can select them. I am now going to drop them and we'll clear them and we will move them to complete it. And now, oh, sorry, I had the full screen on so you don't see everything. My apologies there. So now that they're completed, I just wanted to show you that the image you put in the background can even be something like an animated GIF. So you could do things that actually were very dynamic in creating this experience for the guest. So colors, branding, notation elements that you want to send back, other types of things that you want the guest to be able to see. All that stuff now is baked in to the customization we have for the front end. So that's sort of the first thing that I wanted to touch on here. And hopefully you find this pretty exciting because we think there's a lot of benefits to having this in really in the context of the branding that you're going to want to do for your own productions, because we know that's important to a lot of people. So that's the first thing. So let me jump in. I know we've had some questions coming up. So I just want to touch on everybody here. So we have Walter from the Netherlands. Walter, oh, sorry. Wrong comment here. So John, thank you for joining us from Montreal. Yeah, I think a lot of people right now are experiencing this combination of snow, warm weather turning into freezing weather, and snow and winds and everything. So be safe and definitely enjoy the holidays. So let's see. So we have, season greetings from JP. Thank you. Definitely, I'm grateful for everybody spending the Friday before Christmas weekend with us here. So thank you, guys. So Walter is saying that here in the Netherlands, Amsterdam has no white Christmas, but rain. Still great to enjoy good times with the family. Absolutely. And we just looked out of the studio here, and we actually have some snow outside. So we'll see. We weren't really expecting snow. We were thinking it was going to be similar to you, Walter, with just rain and cold. But we have a little bit of snow, so that would be very interesting. So let's see. We have Very Scott. Terrell Wright is wishing us a happy holidays. Terrell, thank you for joining us. We have Very Scott is saying happy holidays to everybody. And this is something that, we definitely appreciate, even if you can't stay for the stream. Thank you for joining, to share, your season's greetings. That's something we all appreciate here. So let's see. We have the AI, Andy Fritz. Andy, greetings back. Hope things are going well in Switzerland. Maybe you'll have a white Christmas here, but definitely appreciate the support. So we have Olympus Net is wishing us a Merry Christmas from Greece. So thank you very much. We appreciate that, Olympus Net. Okay, so let me jump to the next piece of this. And I'm just going to sort of move a few things around here. So give me a moment and I will get everybody set up here. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is I actually want to go in and show you some stuff that we're doing on the LiveToAir side. So the first thing is there's a few things in the background that we've added. So we've updated the WebRTC stack that we're using, changed things around how we're doing some of the core code updates. Also, we're added NDI 5.5 into this. So a few things in the back end, but two things that I really want to touch on that I think we've had a lot of requests for, and we're getting them in. So the first thing is on the audio side. We've now added support for ASIO audio, which is what's sort of the standard being used for multi-channel audio. So if I just come in here, the way we have our audio set up here, we are basically running everything Dante normally. And so if you look at how we have this set up, I can actually go in now, because we have ASIO support, and I can assign audio to mono channels. We have up to 64 mono channels now of audio that are available both in and out for LiveToAir. But we can also do things as stereo pairs. So if you wanted to do something where stereo could make a difference, it had music, it had other things, you can actually bring them in either as mono feeds or stereo pairs. And because we have, like in this LiveToAir 12, that would require 12 stereo pairs, 24 individual channels. That wasn't possible with Windows device model devices, so now it is. So now we have full support for Dante for all 12 channels in our highest end LiveToAir. So that's something a lot of people have asked for, and we're really happy that that is here now. So something we wanted for a long time ourselves. But that was part of our rewrite of a lot of the things we did on the back end. So the next thing that we've had a lot of requests for here is for automation and how we can do more to make multi-step processes work with single button pushes. So one of the things that we added up here is macros now. So macros are now part of this. And there's a couple of ways these macros can work. So in one case, you can simply go in and add a macro, give it a name, and assign a key to it. So very simple. And then you just turn around and say, I have all of this set up here for what I want to do. It can be multiple steps that you have assigned to keys. So this is just basically to move between two panels. And we'll show this in a moment. But the key piece with all this, even though we have this, is that we also, in parallel, have an HTTP interface that allows you to control this from something like a Stream Deck. And that's probably what more people have been interested in as we've gone through this, the ability to take and do these sort of macro controls via Stream Deck. So let me sort of switch over and I can show you some of the things we have here. So bump that a bit there. So, all right. So now, if you look, we have the ability to do some basic stuff. Like if you look here in LiveToAir, I can turn around and switch the active channels, and you can see that all that's moving. I'm just, everything I'm doing here is just all done through the Stream Deck. But I can also do some more interesting things. So one of them could be, let me put this here. One of them could be, I actually want to take and add a new guest into a channel. So I can select the channel I want. So I do that either through the button or through a mouse click. And then I can just go and say, who in the queue do I want to add into this? So if I turn around and say, okay, I'm going to do this, then just using here, I can take a round and add the guest. And now this guest has shown up. You can see they're added over here. And then I could take and say, I want to put them on air just with a button push. And now that guest goes on air. So these macros now can do a lot of different things. And there's a few things that if you think about the way people could work, I have this set up now. So these first three guests are one panel and the next three guests will be a second panel. So with just button pushes, I can turn around and say, I want to bring panel 1 on air. And what that will do is it'll take and bring these first three channels. You can see the numbers all turn red, which means these are all on air. So they're all on air and these are all off air. So we swap panels with a single button push. The other thing you'll notice if I select these guests is you can see their audio is muted. So in addition to switching them live in the background, I now just muted their audio. So I can, before they go live then, I can just turn around and say, unmute the panel and just do that right over here. So press that and now all the guests are unmuted for panel 1. So it allows me to bring people on, do some sort of intro, and then when I'm ready to go, I just switch over and unmute all the guests. So these are definitely things that we have here that are really, really powerful, where by combining these things into these sequences of functionality, you get a lot of value out of that in terms of workflow and optimizing workflow. So the other thing that we've added here, which I think is really cool, and is that we've now added interactivity. So what I'd like to do is sort of show you the guest side and LiveToAir together. This will give you a better sense of things. So you can see here, this is the guest that we had before. And now you'll notice across the bottom, we have some new things that are sitting here. So we have a hand raise, an agree, and a disagree. And what this will let you do is if I click hand raise, so we're guest number 6 here. So if I click hand raise, you'll see now that in LiveToAir, we do that indicator. But that can also be sitting over here where I agree or disagrees. So this will let you do things, especially when you have large numbers of guests, like with the 12 channel version. You could go there and say, okay, I just want to talk to everybody. Let's get an opinion. How many people think that, we should be doing more with TriCaster? You could actually take and just have that, see all the results. Not only does it show up on the LiveToAir interface, but if you remember, LiveToAir also has an XML file that it writes out. All of that information also gets written out to XML. So that gives you now the ability to do scripting and other stuff that can react to guests' responses. And because of that, you could do things like look at all the guests coming in, see everybody who agreed and everybody who disagreed, and show poll results on the side, things like that. So you can do that now with this sort of interactive feature. So that's another thing that I think can definitely be useful in a lot of different production scenarios. And again, it creates that dynamic, that interactive dynamic with remote guests and makes them feel more directly a part. And the other thing, if we just switch over to the LiveToAir UI, is that if I have all these things set up here, when we're done, like if I'm the host and I'm finished with a question, you could just say clear interactions. And you click that and you notice all the interactions are removed. And that will also be reflected in the XML file. So that's the next feature set that's really LiveToAir specific. And these will all be available in January. So we have an upcoming release that's probably, a week away from production. We sent out an email inviting everybody that's a LiveToAir user currently to be part of the beta for this. So if you want to beta this, that's available as well. So this is what's coming out next on the LiveToAir side. So the last thing that I want to talk about, and I'm just going to sort of run through this because we're actually really excited, is we have a new product that we've developed that I think is going to be useful for a lot of folks. So I would like to basically introduce everybody to Call-in-One. So Call-in-One is a single channel live remote guest. And what you can do is you can actually have multiple guests connect. You can bring one of those guests on, and you could use this just like Call-in Manager. So this is where the Call-in-One comes. So you could use this with LiveToAir to bring guests in and to send them over to a LiveToAir system. But you can also use this to work directly with a single guest all on its own. So if I come here, select a guest and click connect, you now see I have this guest. We have the return video coming to this guest. And right now, this guest is working just like LiveToAir. If I want my off-air video, I could be an operator webcam, do all the things I need to do to interact and dial in this guest. I could just send them over to the studio, which would be the normal way when you screen a guest in LiveToAir to send them over. So that is the first thing you can do. But you can also turn around and say, I just want to put this guest on air. And so now I can take the video from this guest and send this out, video and audio. This guest will receive the video you see up here is the return video. So now, in addition to having the LiveToAir infrastructure, we now have Call-in-One as a single channel call-in solution where guests can call in, you can bring them in and then put them on air and then take them off air and work with them one at a time. So this, we're pretty excited about this as a new product because we know there's this slice of the market that doesn't need the full capabilities of LiveToAir, but are really looking for the ability to take in guests with a single URL, all the things that you can do sort of from that LiveToAir workflow. And we think we've covered that with Call-in-One. The other thing, though, is that this can work with LiveToAir. So you can turn around and have this running on a system. And when you have guests come in, you could bring those guests all in, bring them on LiveToAir, but then you could use Call-in-One as a mechanism for bringing in audience questions. If you had viewers coming in, you post a URL link, they could come in and do that through Call-in-One. So this is something that we are definitely interested in having some people that would like to do initial tests. This is still sort of in a alpha release here, but we are really trying to pick up some momentum around shaking out anything that's in there. And one of the big things that I want to announce with this is that All-in-One is available both for PC and for Apple Silicon Macs. So we have been asked for a Mac solution since we started as a company. So this is now our first offering. Native Mac, runs on any type of Apple Silicon Mac, and it'll give you that ability now, if you are a Mac-based studio, to have all the advantages of the call-in, the screening, the remote setting of devices, all the things that we've talked about on the LiveToAir side, but now in the Mac universe. And yes, it is a single channel, but we think for some folks that is a perfect fit, where they just have a single guest they want to bring on, where they want to interact with an audience and take callers. So that is probably the big new announcement from a product point of view that we have. And as I said, just reach out to us if this is something you would be interested in testing. We're especially looking for people who could test this on the Mac side, because there's more Mac hardware out there than we have here, and we want to make sure, but it is for Silicon only, so M1, M2 based Macs, but any flavor thereof. So hopefully that should work. So that is everything I wanted to cover here. So let's see. So Walter there's a couple more comments here. So let's see. Walter was saying, I saw more features like a hands up. Yes. So let me actually jump in. I'll see if I can go back and do a quick show of that. We have the ability to do a hands up. We have the ability to, let me see if I have this over here. So I can do this here. Oh, I opened up the wrong one. Give me a second here. So sorry about that. So yeah, so we have the ability to do hands up, agree. So all of that is baked in. And if you look here, I'll just do this right over here. So you can see that I'll connect. I have too much going on here. I'm sorry. Let me just see if I can bring out somebody else in. Yeah. So if I come over here and let's see if I can show this. Yeah. So if I want to do a hand raise here, you can see now that over here it has a hand raise going on, and I can just change that to agrees or to disagrees. And so that's all reflected here, and it's also reflected in XML. So if you do any type of automation in the background and you want to do that, that's all available to you. And supposedly, we've done a few things on automation here. So I think you can expect to see us leveraging this in some future shows. But that's definitely part of what we have in the new LiveToAir, this type of interaction. So let's see. So we have DJR Poloit is saying hello from Rhode Island and Merry Christmas. Rain and wind here. Well, hopefully that that will turn into something that is palatable for the holidays and safe for everybody to travel. But thank you for joining us, and Merry Christmas back to you. So JP is saying this is exactly what we're hoping you would announce. So JP, I'm glad we didn't disappoint on that. Hopefully, if this is something you'd like to start working with, we can just reach out and we can get you set up with an alpha of this. And we're expecting that this will be released in the first quarter of next year. The other thing is that we are doing this for All-in-One as a $99 a year subscription. So it's sort of a complement to where you buy LiveToAir. You can just use this as a yearly subscription for $99. But if you are a LiveToAir customer or you purchase LiveToAir, you will get call-in-one free with that. So we will just include call-in-one as an enhanced benefit to being a LiveToAir customer. So this will give you, different options. So you can sort of spring for a LiveToAir 6 or LiveToAir 12. You can do the subscription on the call-in-one. And because it's both Mac and PC, it is really flexible that way and can work across environments. So give you both sides of this if that works for you. So let's see. So Walter is saying, call-in-one, I can run it on my Mac and connect it to vMix. It supports NDI and Dante. That is correct. So call-in-one is an NDI system. It'll support Dante. Right now is Windows device model, which for whatever you do, that should be fine. We'll see if we can do anything more with that with Osio. But right now the expectation is that would be a Windows device model with Dante, but all IP based. So you can work with the Mac for call-in-one and work with vMix on a PC and keep those two separate. So JP is asking, how do you know when there is a caller in the queue? So it is actually identical to, let me sort of jump back and forth. So I'm running on the same hardware here. So one of the things that you'll see, so I have to jump back and forth between these. So if you look at this, you have an inbound queue, an in-studio queue. So if somebody's calling in, you can just have this set to the inbound queue, and everybody that comes in will just show up here. And so the same way that call-in manager will work. The other piece to this, which I really didn't mention, in addition, when you get call-in-one, you will also get call-in manager, which means that you could have somebody screen all the guests in call-in manager, make sure they're all set up. And then in call-in-one, you could actually just have those guests come into the studio. So the call-in manager screener can go through them, put the guests in the studio that you may want to bring on air, and you can just be looking here as a call-in-one operator and say, oh, I can just bring this guest and go on air. And because this runs now on an all-in-one interface, this is something that you could even have a host of a show sit there and say, I know all these guests are screened, so they'll just connect to them and say, okay, bring this guest on air. We have our next guest on air. So you can do things now where you could have this set up with it's just the host doing this, but you have another screener on the side. So different types of workflows that you can use around this to make this hopefully fit into even smaller style productions where you just want to have, one host and maybe somebody doing the TD work and any other operator functionality off camera. So that worked. But you'll just see all the guests appear here when they come in. And, we have a number count. We have time since the guest has been connected, other things that are there. And you also have all the same functionality. Like if the call-in screener, using call-in manager, added notes or anything, you would see that right there. So you can go and put all the notes you need. So when somebody on air may be looking at this and saying, okay, I want to bring somebody on, they could be looking down and saying, oh, Nick has a question about, and go in and bring them on air. And, you have this ability now where, when you drop them, they can go back to the queue or you can send them to complete it. So all of that's in there. So whether you want to do it just with the one, with call-in manager and call-in-one together, a lot of workflow possibilities there. Okay, so let's see. So Walter's saying he'd love to test it on his Mac. So let's see. What else do we have? So WP Business Club. Oh yes. So Walter, yes. Thank you for that. So definitely just reach out. WP Business Club is saying a nice release for Christmas. Well, we wanted to share this with you as we're coming to the close of this year, and that was definitely something that we wanted to put out there. So let's see. So Vita to Broadcast is saying, what's your show for somebody that is in queue for call-in-one? So when somebody is in the queue right now, what they see is just you're in the queue, please stand by. But because if you remember, when we set things up for the new guest UI, if I actually just switch over to that for a second, and I can, you can see that we let you put custom messages in now. So in the new guest UI, you could have that guest have sort of a checklist of anything you wanted for them. They know they're sort of sitting there if you move them to the studio queue, and you could see what would be coming up, but they're not going to see the show yet. I know that's what a lot of people ask. We have some ideas around that, and that may be something that we will be able to talk about at the beginning of next year and see, you know, a couple of good ways to do that. So people would be able to see video coming back when they're waiting in the queue. But we're not there yet. We have some back-end changes to do to make that possible. But a lot of stuff is going on right now. So I'm sort of touching on some of the key things that are coming out nearest term, but there's a lot of build out that we're going to be doing over the first 3 months of next year to our back end and some of the feature functionality that's tied into that. So I expect that what you're seeing here is just going to be the start of a range of new things that we're going to be offering throughout the new year. So stay tuned for that. But yes, that's what the guests can either see a custom message right now, or they'll just see where they are in the queue. It's sort of a blank screen and you're here in the queue. So we have both of those options, but this is all coming pretty soon. So Vita the broadcast said, "Oh great, the oh sorry, I'm skipping some things because I'm looking on the side. So on the Mac side, it will not be Windows Audio but Dante via the virtual sound card. That's correct. So that would be Dante, but it can also be if it is visible in a Mac, if it is a device that would be recognized in a browser, in Safari and whatever you're running on Mac, we will see it here. So it's probably more than just, you know, Dante virtual sound card, but it could be an analog audio device. It could be any other type of audio that is Mac compatible, but natively Mac compatible and visible in a Mac browser, because we're actually using some browser technology in the back end of this to support it on a Mac. So that's what you'll get here, but that should work for pretty much anything you want. So now the question, I was jumping ahead. So Vita the broadcast is saying, "Oh great, the first way you presented, I thought was something closer to vMix Call, but it isn't at all. Amazing." So yeah, so what we are showing here now is this would be a fully customized guest experience you can do. Set the colors, set the background images, and as we even showed, you know, when somebody's in the completer queue, you can have an animated GIF. So if you wanted to do something that sort of highlighted different things and moved around, you could create a complex animated GIF that could do things like that as well. So a lot of flexibility on the guest side for onboarding. So Vita is also asking, your audio is going in and out. So, okay, this is on here. So I apologize. Maybe that's me turning away a bit from the mic. I'll try to position this better. So let's see. So Walter is asking, and still the XML output, so I can still use this for lower thirds in vMix. Yeah, let me check how we're doing that. That is planned in this. I'm not sure if it's in the alpha yet or not, but that is one of the things we plan for doing this, so you can use that in the vMix lower thirds. But thank you for pointing out. I didn't mention that before. So Scott Whitney is saying, "Hey John, any work on the back-end server-based connectivity? We struggle getting folks to be able to connect because of firewall issues." So yes, Scott, thank you for chiming in here. Yes, we are working on something that we think will allow guests to go pretty much through any setup outside of things that involve sort of whitelist, where, you know, outside of certain IPs you can get in. So we've talked about a couple of ways to do that, and that is part of our plan for the changes over the first. It's really, we're looking in the first quarter to be working on this back end retooling, and so that will be part of that. So we'll definitely be reaching out to you to test this as well. So thanks, Scott. So let's see. So Walter is asking, how can you customize the UI? Oh, we had some lights go out there. So how can you customize the UI? It is much more complicated than I can show on here, but it's basically when you set this up, you can go into a panel on the side of the guest interface, and it gives a list of every single thing you can change color-wise, primary colors, secondary colors, changing the iconography for all the different like hand raises and mutes and all the other stuff there, as well as specify different backgrounds you can use. And the way we have this set up is you can actually have the backgrounds point to a URL. And that's the way we set this up for a variety of reasons. We definitely, from a hosting point of view, hosting other people's graphics can become, problematic in different countries, different rules around what gets posted and do we have liability. So what we let you do is actually specify a URL. And that has two benefits. I mean, the first is that it means that the guest, you're not downloading the graphic to them directly. So you're just pointing to something like that you're hosting on some sort of backend service and downloading from there. But the second real benefit is that if you keep the URL name the same, you could actually go and change it, the image itself associated with that URL for different shows. And when the guest refreshes their browser, they get those new images coming in. So definitely something that could make it easier where you can create a single general template and then change the imagery you may use to customize it for different clients or for different events. So something hopefully that you guys will find useful as you start to work with it. So let's see. JP is asking, what does the URL link look like that we give to guests? So it is a generic URL. So normally it's unbranded. So in this case, it's alpha.colon.studio. So that's for the alpha that we've seen here. We have a whole set of things that we've appended to it. And that's all part of what we have with, basically the customization piece right now. But you can actually just forward to that URL. So from a guest point of view, you could do something which had your own, mystudio.com/guest site. And then that would forward the guest to that URL. So you could send something very simple as a link out and then just forward that, or use, any one of the URL compressors, Bitly or whatever to go and send shorter links out to guests. So different ways to do it, but the guests don't really need to do anything other than just click on a link for this. So that shouldn't be that bad in terms of the guest experience either. So let's see. So Walter is asking, if it is so deep, the UI config, I can make a Dutch version more or less. So you can change the names on everything. And I believe that would let you rename every one of the fields on here. I just have to verify that. But I know you can add new fields and name them whatever you want. So we definitely have the ability to make this very custom, even on the language side. But I would have to see, I'm not sure we could work with different alphabets, if there were different characters we needed to support. So, but I'm just getting told by one of my developers that there are some fields you can't edit, but let me look into what we can do on that front, and then we'll sort of go from there. But there may be, a couple of fields that are locked in that are not going to be Dutch, but you can add other named fields that if the alphabets would work, you should be able to do that. So hopefully we'll do what you want, but if you want to give this a try, your feedback is definitely very, very welcome on different ways we can improve it. So let's see. So we have Vita de Broadcast. So he was about to ask about corporate IT, and I believe the firewall question kind of answers it. It'd be amazing to leave Zoom Teams for a change. Yeah, so that's really what we're focused on, and we think we have some good ways to handle that, but would definitely be something that if this would work for you as we implement these things, please, we invite you to be part of a test group that would help us make sure that we've covered what we needed to with that. And Vita's also asking, oh, do you support virtual backgrounds? If no, any plans? So the quick answer is no, we don't. So I'll sort of start with that. It's not something that we've really had a direct plan for, but there are things like NVIDIA Broadcast, which if the guest has the correct hardware, they would be able to take and use that to do sort of the green screen chroma keying locally, and then use that as a webcam to us. So that's one thing. The other is that based on the quality of the guest connection, if they do had a lit green screen background, that could be something that you could remove on the studio side. And we've done that with some folks. The quality of video that you get, WebRTC may have some small aliasing issues around finer details, but we've definitely done chroma keys off of LiveToAir delivered, remote green screens. So we know that that is possible. But hopefully that will cover what you need. So now that we're sort of in this conversation mode, why don't I wrap the show and we'll move over to our sort of post-show hangout and see if we have any other questions. But before I do that, I want to first wish everyone wonderful holidays. I mean, we celebrate Christmas here, and I realize we have a lot of people that are celebrating many different holidays. So I want to wish everyone peace and happiness through this holiday season, and hopefully some downtime to relax. So we will not be here next week for a show. We will be taking advantage of that downtime to relax. But we are going to wrap up season 3 the first Friday in January. So I think that might be the 6th, January 6th. And we'll do our end of season show there. We'll touch on a few things that I want to close with and talk a bit about what we'll have in season 4. So if you can't stay around for the post show, again, happy holidays, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. If not, we'll see you in a couple of seconds. Take care. All right, welcome back to the post-show hangout. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us through the show. I know we covered a lot of stuff about LiveToAir, and really what we wanted in this show is, what's the best way that we could sort of prep people on what we're doing and get meaningful feedback? Because I think one of the things when we don't have enough of a product developed, it's very hard to get, real use case feedback. So a big part of introducing this now was to show you things that are real and to get some thoughts and suggestions from all of you, but also for those of you that would want to either alpha or beta or just give the current LiveToAir a trial. Those are things that we wanted to be able to sort of make available as well, because that hands-on feedback is really incredibly valuable to us. And that's something that we wanted to cover in this show. Whereas next show, sort of our wrap-up show for season 3, we really want to talk about where we're going with the show and the different things that we want to do. And, I appreciate everyone granting me the latitude to do some of the more commercial things we do on the Gnural Net side of the house. It is sort of the driver for the show. So JP is saying, sign me up. So JP, just reach out to support at gnurl.com, and we'll get you on the list and get you ready to test all this stuff. And we are doing, early testing with both Call-in-One and the new LiveToAir and the Alpha website. and we'd be happy to work with you on that as well. So any of the above, but just get in touch, support@gnural.com, GNURAL.com, and we'll get you sorted out with that. So the other thing is that hopefully in showing you this, people will sort of recognize that we are really taking feedback very seriously when it comes in, and that we try to incorporate the things that we know we can do and do reliably. And then, from there, hopefully we'll continue to evolve the products. And if we're not covering exactly what you want now, chances are, if it's a function or a capability that people would want more broadly, it'll be something that we'll be able to get into the product going forward. We are constantly updating things, front end, back end, UI, lots of different things that we have, lots of irons in the fire, as they say. So definitely look forward to that. So JP saying, is there an out screen? So when you drop the guests, where do they go? So we let you send a guest to a completed queue, and there is a completed screen on there. And if you let me see if I can just move myself over to let's see, where am I here? In Studio. I'm going to see if I can move this over to completed queue. So now, if you look, here is an example of the completed screen that we have set up. So this is actually using an animated GIF. So when the guest has gone through all stages, you can drop them off at another screen with its own messaging. And like here, this is a sort of an animated message we did only for demonstration purposes. This could have any text, anything else you wanted. It's just an image file that's loaded via a URL. So yes, when guests drop off, they'll go to a custom screen for that as well, specific for when they're in the drop-off stage, and complete it. Okay, so Vita's saying, I really love the work you do, showing the big picture for people to build upon it. Yeah, we think that's really important, and hopefully you can see the complement with the show, and what we cover in the show. We are big believers in automation, workflow optimization, all the things that go to make rich productions easier to do with smaller crews, because that's a lot of people are in that position trying to figure out how to do more with less. And so we really are focused around that as sort of our theme. And in LiveToAir, that's all about the workflow capabilities we provide. And now with the macros, some of the automation capabilities we provide with that. But in the show itself, if you look, a lot of this is all around how do you take and make it easier for the guest, easier for the crew that are working with them. And so those are both things that are really important to us. So thank you. I definitely appreciate the support. And so JP is asking, what's your suggested bandwidth for incoming callers? This reminds me of radio days, and you have to advise callers on basics. So yeah, so our basic recommendation is that if you want to do 1080 from a remote guest, they should have 5 megabits up and down. That's basically 1080 each direction. We will scale down if the guest has less bandwidth available, or they have spotty bandwidth. We'll adapt dynamically. So if the guest sort of goes down, we'll lower resolution to preserve frame rate. But you also have the ability to set the guest resolution remotely. So you can go in and say, this guest is bouncing around at 1080. So I'm going to bring them down to 720 or even 360, 640 by 360 to give you sort of a wide screen standard definition, which, given some people's webcams and other stuff, and the fact that you're shrinking these things when you put them on screen, usually if you put multiple people in a box, things like that, that could be more than acceptable quality for many productions. And having a consistent frame rate and a consistent quality in the signal, even if it's not the highest resolution, we think is something that people would appreciate. So, you know, it's 5 megabits each direction for 1080. We're usually somewhere between 2.5 and 3 megabit suggestion for 720. And we're talking, you know, around 2 megabits for, you know, for 360, 640 by 360. And those are rough numbers, but we are adaptive. So Walter is asking, the Stream Deck example you showed was with central control or companion, or he prefers central control. Well, I will tell you, Walter, this is one of the things we're planning to show next week as well. We've been working with Joe DeMax, and we will have central control support. It's in the current version, the new version that was just released of central control. And that will let you do a ton more than we could show here, and that the raw macros do. Part of what central control will give you is feedback. So, you know, the ability to look at the state of something and to get that information out from central control. Because we provide that information through a web API that Joe has been working with in the integration with central control. So hopefully that will be something that we'll have available to show everyone on the next show. So that's 2 weeks. This is over the holidays, so you know, hopefully, you know, we can coordinate all this stuff with Joe. But definitely, central control doesn't need a wink and a nod. We're on it for that. Okay, so let's see. So JP is asking, can the call drop? We're likely to get calls in from people on the move if it goes public. Yes, so if a call drops, it can then, if they come in on the same device, we'll recognize that call drops. And what happens when that happens is you get a freeze frame on the UI. So we don't like switch to color bars, so you get this sort of jarring look. The guest video will freeze going out to your switcher, and you can then switch to something which doesn't include that guest and sort of go back to host and reconnect the guests in the background. The guest connection, if they reconnect, they'll just show up in the studio and you assign them back to their slot and they're on air. So it takes almost no time at all. If they go in from a new device, they would come in and we wouldn't know they were the same guest. So we'd have to sort of, you'd see them coming in the inbound queue, and you'd have to walk them into LiveToAir that way. But we definitely have multiple ways. And in fact, if I were to unplug LiveToAir in the middle of a show, all of the guests that you had connected would go back to the studio and be sitting there connected. And when you bring up LiveToAir, you'd see them all there, and you could just double click on each of them. They'd all go to their channels, and then you could go live on air again. So we've done a lot around that redundancy, both for if the guest drops, but if you had sort of major catastrophe in the studio, power outage, hardware failure, any of the above, you still have the ability to reconnect very, very quickly, and to switch over. So on both sides, we have you covered. So let's see. We have WP Business Club is saying sent alpha request. PS email. This is John Drinkwater, incognito. Okay, John. Yes, we'll take care of you. Your incognito worked very well. I didn't recognize it was you. So Merry Christmas, John. Hope all's going well for you. So we'll take care of that. We'll do that over the break and get that all out to you. So let's see. So JP is asking, is there a way for them to input their name before they come in, or must we enter that? So the only thing that we do is we ask guests to input their name. All the other information, what show they're joining, all that information will sort of default. If the guest has joined in the past, we use local browser storage to store the name of the guest. So it's not up on our side, but it's on their browser. So if they join using the same browser, it'll autofill their name in that field. And so they won't have to re-enter it if this is a regular guest. They'll just come in with all that information filled in, and then they can come in and join the show. So a couple of ways to handle it with that. But that's, we don't have a way for you to enter the guest name ahead of time. I don't believe that's anything we have in the new config, but maybe that's, that's something, the challenge is you're sending the same URL to everybody. So it isn't something that we normally do. So just sort of because we don't know who the guest is you sent it to. But we'll think. If you have other ideas for how you would like to do that, please share them with us. We definitely are interested. All right. So I think we may be running to the end of our questions here. If so, that's sort of a final call for questions. I'll put it that way. So I want to thank everybody for everything this year. It's been great community here. I'm really loving the interactive nature of each of these shows now, and that we actually are having a conversation as opposed to me just doing a presentation, which personally for me would be really boring. I really love going back and forth with everybody as we talk. So if this is something that if you have any ideas for how we could do better next season, different things you'd like to see in the show, in the way we engage with the audiences, with each other as a community, please let me know. This is stuff we are definitely taking very seriously. So JP is saying that it's good enough. If they have a place for their name, it's perfect. So yes, all that is in there. And I mean, one of the things I didn't really talk about, but in the fields, you can actually add custom fields as well. So let me see, before we get to John's question, I just wanted to, let me go back, see if I can leave the show here and just show you something here. I don't have it set up to do it here, but if I were to move people back to, let me see, I think I can do this. Give me a minute, and I'm just going to move them back to the inbound queue. Nope, I can't do it. So I was going to say, but we have the ability to add custom fields that you can then take in. So you could do things like, what's your favorite switching solution, and people could go in and say TriCaster, vMix, ATEM, whatever. So you have all of that, so you could add your own fields and other things that you'd want to use. So that's also part of the customization, and definitely something that maybe people will find useful. But for John Drinkwater, John is wishing a Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Walter, thank you. Happy holidays to everyone on your side as well. And I'll pass along all the good wishes to the Gnural team. JP is saying custom fields getting better by the minute. Yeah, I mean, JP, we listen to a lot of feedback for what people are trying to do. So we cover what we can, but we keep in the back of our head all the time things that we can't do right now, but we really would like to do in the future. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful holiday season, a very Merry Christmas, and more than anything, be safe, enjoy family and friends, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for the wrap up for season 3. Take care, everyone.